Welcome to English Language, Grammar and Usage. In this video, we are going to have a discussion on a special British English style, a tea, a water. Is it correct? Yes, it is. Normally, what they teach in grammar? Uncountable nouns, tea, water, coffee, milk. Uncountable nouns should not have a or an before that. You cannot say a rice, a water, an oil, a milk. That's what they teach in grammar. But in British English, under certain circumstances, not everywhere, under certain circumstances, a tea, a coffee, or a water is correct. It overrides the conventional grammar rules that you cannot use the indefinite article before uncountable nouns. It overrides that rule, and a tea, a water, a milk, a coffee is perfectly correct under certain circumstances. So that's where what we are going to explore, how the real English as spoken in the real English world, does not always follow the rules of grammar, particularly the obsolete rules which were framed maybe 200 or 300 years ago. Because the rules remain the same, but English, being a living language, changes, adapts, it is flexible. So, in British English, a tea or a water or a coffee is correct under certain circumstances. So, let us see how and why they violate the rule placing an article before uncountable. How the violation of the rule is regarded as correct in British English. Now, I got the idea for making this video when I came across the sentence, she made herself a coffee. This sentence I found in The Crime Writer. Danny Jeffrey, The Crime Writer, that book had this sentence. I was reading the novel. She made herself a coffee. Talking about a journalist. Made herself a coffee. A coffee? Yes, it's correct. So it was at that time I decided to make this video to give the students an idea that a coffee, a tea, these expressions, these phrases are perfectly correct under certain circumstances. Apparently, they may violate the grammar rule. Coffee, uncountable, yet you are saying a coffee. But under certain circumstances, British English accepts such expressions as perfect grammar. So the novel gave me the idea that I should make this video for the benefit of the students. So the sentence in the novel, The Crime Writer, the sentence was, she made herself a coffee. That's about the journalist. So by linguistic logic, if you can say a coffee, you can also say a tea. You can also say a water. You can also say a beer. You can also say a trouble. So similar non-countable nouns or uncountable nouns can be preceded by indefinite articles. So that is the logic. If you say a coffee, you can also say a tea, a water. So let us see under what circumstances these expressions are used in British English. Now, before we proceed, it is interesting to note that here we are facing a regional influence that overrides classic grammar rules. Because these types of expression, a tea, a coffee, They are used in British English but not in American English. In American English, they usually don't use a tea, a coffee, a water. Only in British English, these phrases are acceptable and permitted. So English UK permits, not English US. English UK permits these expressions as perfect grammar, overriding the rule that a or an cannot precede uncountable nouns. The rule is overridden, and British English permits a tea, a coffee, but American English usually they do not use a tea or coffee. They prefer a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a glass of water. Only in British English, a tea or a coffee is perfectly valid and acceptable, and they override the classical grammar rules. Yes, a or an can be used before uncountable nouns in certain circumstances. Now, let us see how they quantify an uncountable noun in such usage patterns. A coffee refers to one person, one serving, usually 250 to 300 ml, one cup, standard cup, one person, one serving. A water, either one glass of water or one small packaged bottle of mineral water. A trouble, one single issue, for instance, a heavy traffic while driving. So, a coffee or a tea means one serving for one person. A water means either one glass of water or one small packaged bottle of water. And a trouble means one single issue, like facing heavy traffic jam on the road. So the bulk is now quantified. If you want in bulk, you would say some coffee. But here a coffee, one person, one serving, 250 to 300 ml, the standard cup. A water, either one glass or one small packaged mineral water bottle. So these are used in buying, in restaurant, in shops, in marketplace, and they are fully acceptable, grammatical and correct in British English. So extensive reading of English books by British and American authors can give you a lot of insight into real usage of English. Grammar books do not always teach the practical use of language in the real world because grammar books are copied and pasted. One author copies from another book, and that book had copied from another book. So, the grammar rules, what you are learning, is actually 100 or 200 years old. They never changed. Because the people who write grammar books usually do not know English. All they know is copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. They do not have the real knowledge of English. All they do is copy paste. So, what we see in grammar books is not English. It is 200 years old, a rigid rule, whereas English is a living language used all over the world in various contexts, in journalism, newspapers, radio broadcasts, in scientific research theses, in technical and engineering world, computer world, as literature, that is your novels and stories. So the extensive use of a living language makes it flexible, it adapts, it changes because it has to cater to the real life, real use. And grammar book rules do not reflect the change. They copy and paste the same thing which they found in grammar books 100 years old. They don't change. So that is why extensive reading of English books by British and American authors absolutely necessary to know the real usage of English in real life, in practical life, how English is used. English is not used according to the rules of an obsolete, outdated grammar book. English is adapting, flexible, changing, meeting the needs of the people. So, if you really want to learn English, you read extensively English books by British and American authors. Violations of bookish rules do not violate real grammar. If someone says it is written in the grammar book, uncountable nouns cannot have indefinite articles, so a T is wrong. No, violations of bookish rules, they do not violate real grammar. A T is a real grammar. It's grammatically accepted, perfectly correct. But in the circumstances we mentioned, if you go to a restaurant and you say, I want a tea, perfect grammar. So that is the reason why we need to read beyond textbooks, particularly the Indian students. We need to read beyond the school prescribed books. We need to see beyond the obsolete, outdated grammar rules. And the only way you can gain knowledge of real English is by reading English books by British and American authors. So we shall come back again with more interesting videos. Till then, thank you and goodbye.